Access to the internet, is it a human right? When I received a hospital bill for a coronary catheterization, the fee for service gave me pause. The procedure, which offers diagnostic and prognostic data determining the quality and length of a patient's life, is out of reach for a majority of Americans. The cost for the procedure exceeds $20,000, and slightly over 75% of Americans make less than $99,000 per year, which means that they cannot afford the procedure unless they have health insurance with a reasonable copayment. Imagine if I asked the same questions about CT scans and capsule endoscopies. What is the price of access to technology that benefits human welfare? What is the price of access to technology that reduces child mortality due to waterborne diseases? Every 30 seconds, a child dies from a disease like diarrhea because she lacks access to clean water or a toilet. The Gates Foundation is making substantial grants to universities to develop affordable toilets. As of a month ago, none of the proposals cost less than $1,000 to install, a price too dear for a worker earning $2 a day. Ethical questions regarding access to technological advances that serve human welfare populate the majority of scholarly journals, and they raise one singular question: is access to technological resources a human right? During the week of July 4, 2012, the United Nations passed a resolution declaring that access to the internet is a human right. That action prompted innovators like Vittanji Cerf to argue in New York Times pieces that access to the internet might be a civil right, but it could not be a human right. Jack Healy in the Huffington Post observes that digital platforms are changing the nature of social participation, the spaces in which we share our ideas, information, and knowledge that is essential for human welfare. Tom Friedman, writing about the Arab Spring, states that the role of the internet was overrated in Egypt and Tunisia, but that it's being underrated currently in Gulf life, where in these more closed societies, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are providing vast, uncontrolled spaces for men and women to talk to each other and to talk back to their leaders. One need only recall the online images of Neda Agha Sultan, the Iranian woman killed during street protest, or the reports of the Egyptian government's torture of Khalid Said, to realize the capability of the digital public square to marshal global responses against the abuse of citizens or the violation of human rights by states' authorities. Is the UN Council for Human Rights correct? Is access to the internet, to ICTs, a human right? The United Nations website on human rights offers a video that traces the history of human rights from its first appearance in Persia to the seminal expression of social contracts in the Magna Carta, to the formulation of natural rights as conceived in American and French declarations of liberty, and finally to the United Nations recognition of human rights as moral obligations that apply to all people and in all places. In light of the history of modern Christian and especially Catholic social teaching, coupled with UN formulations, I conceive human rights as the social and personal conditions that enable people to reach their full potential and to realize their dignity, the conditions that people need to be human. Since the UN pronouncement of access to the internet as a human right, a vigorous debate on the impact of technology on human rights has taken place. In the Journal of Politics and Law, Brian Skepsky argues that the UN Declaration of Access to the Internet as a Human Right inflates the definition of human rights. He reacts to assertions by Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, that access to the Internet is like access to clean water. Skepsky thinks that the UN's action calling access to the internet as a human right confuses us by treating the internet, which is a means of expression of our thoughts, values, and beliefs, as if it were the basic human rights to freedom of expression, thought, and belief themselves. The employment of the informational and communication technology clearly indicates that the internet is a tool rather than a right, a means rather than an end, an option or luxury rather than an essential life. But I think Skepsky misses something. There is something afoot during the 21st century, a paradigm shift. Scholars Alston and Gillespie note the emergence of a global public square and marketplace on the internet. A marketplace wherein nations and states are no longer the singular actors who determine, protect, or guarantee human rights. Alston and Gillespie consider, for example, NGOs, national non-governmental organizations, and that they're the most effective monitors of human rights violations because of their use of peer-to-peer technologies to gather and disseminate information or testimony on the exercise of human rights or the violation of human rights from the ground level, from the place of direct participation. You see, NGOs gather their information from the bottom up, from many different sources, rather than from the top-down or unidirectional sort of dissemination used by state-affiliated organizations like our own State Department. Simply visit Netroots Nation. It's a website through which people amplify progressive voices by providing an online and in-purpose campus for exchanging ideas and learning how to be more effective in using technology to influence the public debate. If a state or multinational corporation can no longer place a ban on or control the flow of information and knowledge because of what social media makes possible, then the experience of public squares, Zocalo, Piazza, and marketplace is changing, and the understanding of being human is changing. No longer are people the recipients of knowledge and information from sources controlled by public or private interests like multinational corporations or state reports. People are now both the creators and users of knowledge, the creators and users of information and the technologies that communicate them, the creators and citizens of global public squares and global marketplaces. Does not then access to ICT open an opportunity for people to improve life, to create social and personal conditions where individuals have what they need to flourish? Is not the digital age altering significantly what being human entails? Are technological advances in information and communication expanding where and how people pursue realizing our potential? Is not access to that global public square marketplace and the information and knowledge exchanged in those venues essential for our social agency, realizing the social beings we are? How many children will live if they have access to clean water and toilets? How many girls will flourish with access to schools? How many fewer citizens might disappear, be tortured, or die because they sought a voice in determining what their national life might be like? Is not access to the internet or to ICTs a human right?